I conclude, dear graduates, with my congratulations on your bachelor degree and wish you all a sparkling future in your new world of hospitality. As a final bouncer, your last mandatory activity here at the Sibelius line, I would like to introduce Mr. Joseph Roevens, who will give you our final thoughts. Thank you.
Ouch. At least one person enjoys it. This is a picture, actually a modern picture of the Native American or Native Canadian worship of the sun ceremony. Now, this ceremony was held as a rite of passage to go from one phase of life to another phase of life. And the way it happened was, well, first of all, they would get into a sweat lodge, which was rather similar to the modern-day sauna, and they would smoke a lot of herbs. After that, the older people of the tribe would start piercing their chests, and then they would hang on ropes and they would be facing the sun, and they would have to dance for hours and hours until they fainted. And then most of the time they would get visions of what the next phase in their life would be. Now, I have to tell you a secret. Our management, Dean Osinga and Director Mr. Coy, were actually thinking of introducing a similar ceremony with you today. But fortunately, our legal department stepped in and said, you know, you can't force students to go into piercings and all this. So we didn't do this. However, there are similarities between your 4 years, or maybe a few more, here at our school, and the fact that you're going to a new phase. And just for academic purposes, I also want to tell you a small, or share with you a small secret. Cornell University, which is famous for the hotel school also, the school was actually built on the holy grounds of the Iroquois Native Americans. So the Iroquois, or in French Iroquois, were all around New York State, Pennsylvania. There were several tribes, they formed the whole nation. And on what is today Cornell University were holy grounds where only the medicine men and medicine women were allowed to go. And I find it quite interesting that in the 19th century, actually, someone from Europe decided, Ezra Cornell, to also found a school there. The ground that you're sitting on, here we call it the SIB with affection, is also a very holy and sacred ground. And every time students graduate, you are adding to that spirit. But let's go way back. Way back. This is a picture of the second echo of my daughter. She's now 11 weeks. And the echo reminded me of the first time we had a look at you. Because we didn't know you. You did a test. You had an interview. And on the basis of that, we said, yes, you're all welcome to come to our school and give it a try. And some other people, we said, they probably don't fit. So already there, we had a first impression of you. Oops, it's back, thank you. I took this picture in a very stressful place, the island of Crete. And, but it reminded me of your first weeks at our academy. Because whether you came from high school in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in Bulgaria, in Russia, in India, you came here and suddenly life was different. First of all, you had to deal with a different culture, I've been working in Holland for 14 years and I'm still adjusting. Secondly, you had to deal with bizarre things like problem-based learning. You had to go to sessions where you had to give your own opinion and create knowledge, and then somehow people would evaluate you for that. You were assigned a personal coach, and probably you didn't know what to do with that person. You had to sign up on Nat School, which often works. You had to create logbooks, you had to do reflections, all these things which were actually very odd to you. And we also appreciate the fact that you went through those first weeks, because it was really after week 8 or 9 that we could say, yes, this student is going to stick through it. Yes, yes. Yeah, I know, she's mine, not the postman. This is my daughter at 3 days, that is. And I was quite surprised that she was looking into the camera with so much enthusiasm, and that actually reminds me of all of you in year 1. Not only for me, but also for my colleagues. You were all very, very eager to learn, to go into operations, to go to lectures. I remember this lecture hall being filled with you in year 1. So you already know what my next slide will be. So you really enjoyed, we as staff, as lecturers, enjoyed your enthusiasm. This is year 2. Thanks again. In year 2, we had what I would call a slight drop in attention. And that is maybe because many of you had been to the lectures and you kind of knew the jokes that we were telling and how we were doing things. And you were basically saying, well, you know, been there, done that. So the result was that in this room, 001, it was a good day if about 70% of the students would show up. And I see my colleague Jeff Murray there, so it would be a good day for him if half of them showed up. Okay. You only make fun of the people that you love, of course, right? Well, going back to my first slide, rite of passage, suffering, of course, we didn't mind the drop in attention for the first few weeks, but then we said, forget this, we need to spice these students up again. So what did we do? We threw you into project groups. You had Ima. Ima in Hebrew means mother. Here it means Imagineering. And one benefit, at least compared to another program, is it had a very clear guidelines. So you had one project, Ima. Then you had a project called CRM. Yeah. Are there any people from the medical profession in the room? No. CRM means cyclical retinal malfunction. But here it means something like customer relating, client management, something. But it's a project that you did. So you had IMA, you had CRM, you had an event, you had to be in operations, and then the crazy fast trackers probably did another course also. The result of this was what Austrian artist Helnwein has projected, is that many of you went berserk. And the good news is, every year it's the same thing. I remember around the 10th of December, my CRM group coming to me and saying, I still don't know what's expected of me. And of course I looked with a lot of compassion at them, but inside I was going, yes, they don't get it. It's good. Why is it good? Because you learned to deal with stress. You learned to deal with projects that were not very clear, and still, together with your team, you were able to pull it through. Let me tell you a small secret. Business life is exactly the same. Your manager may look very, very confident when he or she is facing you, but back home they're probably also praying and thinking, what's happening here? But again, you were able to deal with this. Another obsession of our school, continuous measurement. Exams, logbooks, feedback, feedback upon the feedback, coaching sessions, grades, golden bells. Continuously we're monitoring you and we're telling you go. So next phase, no go, wait. We don't say how long, but you have to wait. Yeah? And all this continuous measurement is part of our education, and we believe, or we're actually convinced, that this helps you. That's also why we have these crazy 3 levels in the 10 competencies. The good news is, life out there in the hospitality industry is similar. Recently I looked at the package from Hilton, and the way they develop their managers is also using continuous measurement, monitoring, and assessment. And again, well done, you passed through it, you're here. Okay. Boom. A very short and probably embarrassing question, but hey, let's try it anyways. Who of you failed at least something in this school? Please raise your hand. Okay. Who of you failed at least 2 things? It can be a test, a project, an assessment. Okay, well done, well done. Scientific research, actually by the late Chris Argyris, who's a professor at Harvard Business School and also at MIT in the US, he did a study on how people deal with failure. And he basically found out that those who never failed early on, for example, whiz kids in high school, eventually later on in life, they would meet people of their own level, of their own strength, and they would start failing later on in life, and they would have a lot of difficulty to be able to cope with this. And he did research on consulting firms like McKinsey's, Boston Consulting, etc. And he found out that some of the partners of these consulting firms started to cheat or started to do bizarrely when they were actually fearing failure. So again, to all of you, including myself, thank God that you fail early on. Because when you do, again, you learn a vital skill. But not this one, that's my next slide. By the way, for those interested, a little bit of publicity of my hometown. These are paintings from Sam Dillemans. He's a rather famous painter in Antwerp and also in Belgium. Knocked down. I'm not going to ask who of you was knocked down, but I'm sure at some point in time you were telling yourself, enough of this school. I've done assessment 3 for the 3rd time. I can't see these competencies anymore. I don't want to go back to a feedback session where again another teacher tells me another thing. Finito. I'm going to continue my modeling career. Or I'm very good at shaking cocktails. And if you're in a 5-star hotel, you make huge tips. So some of you may have decided, forget this. But luckily, of course, ta-da! You stood up again. So it doesn't matter if you take hits. It doesn't matter if you get knocked out once in a while. But at least you stood back up. I took this picture at the airport of Valencia in Spain. I sort of forgot what it's for. But I would like to hear from one of you what is on this billboard. Come on, you've all had Spanish. Okay, who dares? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we have somebody. Yes, la risa les hace fuertes, or in other words, smiling makes you strong. Well, enough of all the serious stuff. One of the reasons why you chose for hospitality management is that actually you want to have a job where there is a lot of fun, where there is a lot of quality of life. And of course this is a symbol of the country that I come from, het frietje, as you would call it here. And that also sort of symbolizes the lifestyle that we stand for. We want to create great experiences, offer good food, even if it's not that expensive, and this with a tremendous smile and a lot of vigor. And wine tasting, of course. By this time, you're probably all able to advise at least family members, but probably also clients, on which kind of wine goes with which dish and why, and how it feels and how it enriches the flavor. And by the way, again, some small publicity from Antwerp. This is a 19th century Antwerp painter, Edward Portilje. And staying in Antwerp, this is Adriaan de Brakeleer, also a painter from Antwerp. And this is actually taken, for those of you, because I know many people from Breda like to visit a real city, so you go to Antwerp in the weekend. And this is taken, well, some of the boulevards away from the Groenplaats. That's actually where this is happening, and the people are gambling, playing, and have a good time. And I can also imagine, or I know for sure, that that is also one of your skills, being able to work with your customers, creating good times for them. Sorry, that was too quick. Well, their parents, their students, their guests, and also their colleagues. This slide summarizes what we have done together. By offering you theories, models, by offering you real-life experience in placements, but also in your project teams, by learning to work together and being guided, you were able to cross challenges, to cross difficulties on your road year after year. And also today, you have crossed a new bridge, you have crossed a new difficulty. You have your diploma in your hands, and you will be ready to go into hospitality. Previously, a colleague asked me if this is from Tilburg University, where I got my PhD, but no, it's also from Crete. And but it's worn at important ceremonies. So this is an important ceremony, so I don't mind wearing this. And before I go to my final slide, I would like to remind you of the following. Dear graduates, today you are all experts in hospitality management. So the next time that you see your boss, your colleagues, your parents, your friends going on the internet to look up information on hospitality management, I want you to look them straight into the eyes and say the following. Fudge Google, ask me.